What's up, everybody? We are here with a very special guest today. He has been kind enough to bless us with his presence on the pod, Mr. Roger Galo. Is that how you pronounce the
That is
last name?
correct. Thank you.
Perfect.
Beautifully.
I was going back and forth between Gallo and Galo, so I'm glad I got it right. Yeah, he is here to talk to us today about basketball, offensive efficiency, shooting, the whole nine. So how you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking.
Of course, of course. So like before we get into the nitty gritty and everything, just kind of like tell the people like what you do.
I am a basketball offensive specialist of sorts because this goes beyond just shot making. By virtue of this unintended 10-year journey, decade-long journey, I began noticing and recognizing that even as prolific a scorer I was considered, having been third in the country collegiately, an NBA prospect, and being challenged height-wise for the game of basketball, there were a lot of inefficiencies within my own capacity as a player that's been exposed to me by virtue of this. But I've begun unintentionally engineering a shot based almost entirely in science, which was just the opposite of the traditional textbook shot that I had developed over many years based on what all the information was suggesting the gurus were encouraging you to do, only to begin finally asking questions. Why the gooseneck? The hand in the cookie jar. Why the release point where it was determined to be then? Why the elbow under? All these things that I never bothered, I just blindly bought into, like so many of us, because it worked for somebody. And it became popular. It looked nice. It looked pretty. It went through the hoop. And why not? Only to find out that there may have been a better way to go about doing it. That's ultimately what I've discovered. And I didn't do it all alone. Najee, I did it with the help of professors from the kinesiology department, the physics departments of universities around me, anatomists. I had trouble saying some of these words. And I didn't love science as a student. So here I am becoming a parascientist by virtue of the interest and curiosity that was being created. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm teaching an alternative method of putting that ball through that hoop based entirely in science, which is hard to argue with. It's not because Roger Galo thinks, because it works for me, it ought to work for you. No, this is hard to argue against.
I love that. And so I definitely want to dive into that, but just kind of like, how did your basketball journey get started? Like, how did you fall in love with the game? Like, where did you kind of start at?
I started, as luck would have it or whatever, I started in Indiana. I'm in Philadelphia and I've been in Pennsylvania a very long time. But early on, when I shot a ball and it went swish, it was in Indiana, just outside of Fort Wayne. And at that moment, and I think Bernard King said this, I fell in love with that happening. I didn't understand much more at that moment. I think I was in fourth grade, but at that moment, I thought that was beautiful.
You knew that that's what you wanted to do.
That's what I knew that. And thereafter, very shortly thereafter, I tried out for a basketball team in Indiana. And there's a gentleman, a coach, I'll never forget, 6'6". He had us all sitting on the floor. We're waiting for him to come out. And this 6'6", when you're sitting down and you're that small a kid, and you're looking up at him, he looks like he's 8'6", and he's palming two basketballs. And his introduction in his basketball uniform was a left-handed and a right-handed dunk. Boom, boom. And we were just in awe. And then he began a beautiful speech about what that round thing did for him. And at that moment, I'll never forget it. I recall setting goals immediately based on what he shared with us. I want to go to college and play ball. I want to participate in that, what was it, a famous, I think it was a Dapper Dan Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Dapper Dan, Round Ball Classic, which I ultimately became an alternate for.
All
Anyway,
worked out, you know.
that's how it all started.
I got you. No, I'm always interested in like where people fell in love with the game, because it like kind of starts that journey. You never know where it's gonna go. Like I'm sure when you first saw that ball fall in the hoop in fourth grade, you didn't know that you would end up here, you know?
No
Like
idea.
it's all just like an incredible path. But kind of circling back to like your method and everything. So like what would you say is flawed with the current way that we shoot, and like how does your new or like better method like fix that, solve that kind of
I know you could see me.
Mhm.
That makes me cringe because I'm of the answer I'm about to give. So whoever is out there in your audience, they may want to go get a very, very the choice beverage that they like to have and sit down and listen. Just about everything.
Everything.
I mean, and I'm considering seriously writing a book. And one of the titles that came to mind, and I thought maybe it was too harsh, was Everything You Ever Learned About Basketball Was Wrong.
That's
and
incredible.
I stepped back and I thought, boy, that sounds so unlike me. Who am I to judge? But the reality is, I have abandoned everything that made me the third leading scorer in an NBA prospect, only to find out that it was flawed to that degree. I mean, it wasn't a all aha moment filled with nothing but exhilaration. I was frustrated. I was bothered by that. All those hours and hundreds of thousands, literally over 1 million practice attempts. I had been doing it a way that wasn't the best way to do it. It was the way that became popular and accepted way to do it. So as I said, this was an unintended journey. And by virtue of that, it's made me understand very clearly the inherent flaws, as you say. The focus, the wrist, the action in the wrist, in the hand, the amount of focus and responsibility there. Well, when I talked to a scientist, he was almost speaking down to me. Mr. Galo, do you realize that what you've said was the reason for why you have to gooseneck or put your hand in that cookie jar? It doesn't hold water. The ball's already left your hand. Oh, by the way, that wrist that you're snapping is the weakest, most unreliable part of your shooting system. What?
That's insane.
Did you ever play basketball, Mr. Professor? No, but man, could he support the rationale behind that? And that's what just opened. I thought, okay, I got to check my ego. Just forget everything. Begin to forget what I had done. How much time and devotion, sacrifice I made to become the player I wanted or needed to become to continue to play basketball. And that began the journey right there. And then epiphanies. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. Epiphanies started happening. I started making discoveries by accident. I started challenging. I challenged a litmus testing process. This can't be that good. If I change the responsibility, assign it elsewhere to a better, more stable, stronger part of the body, I can become a better shooter than I had been all those years after all that practice. Wow. I'm having a real hard time accepting this. Just like most people listening to this probably will. Change is not something most people embrace. We're deeply mired, and the more involved in basketball people are, the more deeply mired they are in that conventional, traditional thought process. And that's what I'm up against, trying to convey to them that, you know what, this is based in science. Wouldn't you expect it to be superior?
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Yeah.
So like when you say like kind of shifting the shooting form to a different part of the body, like what part of the body do you shift it to if it's not the wrist?
Well, that's a good question. Any part that can take on the responsibility more readily, more repeatably.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I say repeatably, and I know your basketball acumen will come to well, you're talking about consistency, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not only in shooting within the game, what about your practice? What if you don't have to go as hard? What if you don't have to put up 1,000? One of the great shooters that we all know out there, most of us in basketball, he's a promoter of 1,000 shots every day. 1,000 shots every day? I didn't even do that. I mean, I put up a lot of shots I didn't put up 1,000. Anyway, and today's players, with all the distractions, is that realistic? And by the way, of those repetitions, and that's repetition centric versus my method, which is just the opposite, less is more. How much can they really focus and be mindful within that practice? So how much of it is real effective practice and how much of it is ineffective practice? Well, I would vehemently argue a lot more of it
is ineffective.
The more ineffective part. And that, what if we could reverse that? Wouldn't you expect better results a little faster? Why not?
No, I love that. See, I love challenging, like what we currently know about the game of basketball. Like whenever there's a chance to learn something new or like change up what we might know and find a better way, I'm always down for it. So
that's a great attitude. And I thought that was the attitude I was going to encounter. I mean, I'll be the first to admit, I prematurely left a pretty good paying corporate job when I started this about 2 years into it, thinking, oh my God, wait until the basketball community starts hearing about or learning about this. And unfortunately, I've been met more with the resistance and the closed-mindedness than I'd like to admit exists within that community. And I don't mean that to sound judgmental, but that's what I've been met with. And I get it. You are who? And you've done what? That's nearly impossible. Hey, well, good luck with that.
No, 100%. And so we had spoke, I think about a week ago, and you had told me about how, like there's no true aiming system in the way we shoot free throws specifically. Like, can you talk a little bit more about that now?
To that point, a story comes to mind. I met with a coach who's no longer in the Philadelphia area, but he coached at St. Joe's University, Phil Martelli. And this is to that point. I had come in to a game late one evening in business attire still, and I'm watching this team step up to the foul line, the opposing team. And they were doing this double take, a double look at because first, typically they find the nail, that nail down there. They locate their foot. 90% of basketball players, maybe 95%, maybe more. They locate that nail, and then they fix their sight on the basket. And most of them would do like a I can't believe, wait, am I in the right spot kind of body language? And I couldn't ignore that. I'm thinking, wow, what's up? Now, I couldn't ignore that because at the time, St. Joe's was suffering terribly from guess where? The foul
line.
So that was I think that was a Friday or something night or Saturday night. I came in Monday. The next day, I tried to get to Coach Martelli. He wasn't there. I saw two assistant coaches. I said, hey guys, you don't know who I am, but I happen to be here in the game. I walked out on the court at the end of the game to go stand at that. And the security people were trying to stop me from doing it.
But you had to see.
I had to see what right? I went out there. I looked up. I looked at the nail, and I said to myself, "Oh my God, this thing is off. Not a little bit. This thing is off 4 inches, maybe more."
And so that's what it was.
So I'm sharing it with the assistant coaches. Now they're looking at me like I've got 3 heads. So I thank them for listening and walked out. Now, fast forwarding 2 years later, 3 years later, I meet with Phil Martelli. They had done a major renovation. They spent millions. I asked Coach Martelli to please put on one of my litmus test things, which happened to be a pair of heavy bag boxing gloves.
Okay.
I'm showing him a video of some of the challenges I created to test what I had been discovering in engineering. He's squirming in his seat because I've said something about that story to him. He never got word. He never heard a word about this, right? He's squirming in his seat all the while. And I said, Coach, it looks like you want to say, what is it? He goes, Roger, we had a major multi-million-dollar renovation here. They ran a laser, and guess what they found from basket to basket? It was off 4.5 inches.
Bingo. Jackpot.
But that's the only area that we use a tape measure type device to locate our body. Now, there's only 5 nails on that court for purposes of that designation, if you will. 2 of them that we use. The only 2 we use are at either end, right? Follow.
Yeah.
Well, how do we align our bodies out there, anywhere out there, on a field goal attempt? Short, mid, long. There's no nail. If there were nails, which one would you look for?
Exactly.
How would you find it?
Exactly.
Right? I hope it doesn't sound too silly or simplistic, but wait, not knowing where your alignment truly should be in relation to the basket will affect your accuracy and your consistency. So we're pivoting into these movements to pull up a jumper. Well, how good are we at doing that? And by the way, the basis that was created in which to do that as a basketball player may not have been the best.
And what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is we're trying to do it with our feet
rather than like our eyes.
What about what is our aiming device that we possess? The only aiming device that we possess is our eyes.
Exactly.
Why didn't those players not motivate me in what they were doing that night by looking at the basket first and then locating their body? Because we're not trained to do that.
No. Because there's just this kind of central shooting system that everybody uses. And so
it's a central universal way to the release. Well, that's another topic, the release point. I bought into one of the 2 most universal releases, only to find out after all those years, it could have been a better. There's a more ideal, scientifically supported, physics dictated, biomechanically supported way to release the ball off one's hand when you're shooting basketball.
And what is that?
Now, are you going to ask me to reveal that secret?
I am.
On the public airwaves?
I might just, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, that, as you could tell, I'm hesitant to share, but some, very few actually promote it, but not for the, I don't think, I should be careful. I don't think they understand the real supporting material behind it.
Okay.
But it's the middle finger. The middle finger.
That's the key right there. And it's so crazy because
that will change. That will change your rotation for the better.
Got you. And so like what do you think is holding players back from like incorporating that method or in the way that they shoot today? Is it just like stubbornness kind of?
Some of it is, it depends on which players we're talking about. Evan Turner approached me one time to work with him on his shot, just by accident, more or less. We happened to be at a Portsmouth tournament. He happened to be there. He recognized me for some odd reason. I think we had met before briefly, and I kidded him about his shooting, of course. quite a few years ago, and he said he wanted to work with me. He said, "Hey, I want to work when I get back from vacation with my beautiful woman here. I'm gonna call you, and we're gonna." All right, I welcome. I'll hold my breath. I said, kidding. I won't hold my breath. He had already worked with the shooting coach,
Mm-hmm.
a very well-known shooting coach. Now, why didn't he call me? The professionals have been around a lot of shooting coaches, generally speaking, in any organization they go to. Mm-hmm. Some are bona fide, more, certified. If they're not certified, but I mean, they really have that title of shooting coach.
Yeah, for sure.
Because in basketball, just about every coach considers themselves to be some kind of at least shooting coach. I mean, they know enough about the gooseneck, the follow through, the elbow under, everything that we all have become very familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
But few are legitimate shooting coaches. With that being said, I think honestly, the higher level players, they recognize how much effort, how much time it takes to affect an improvement. Doing it within the confines, the limitations that I'm suggesting are there, the inherent drawbacks or flaws, as you use, that are there, and it's not easy. Mm-hmm. I know what went into it. I lived it. I experienced it. Just to make a tweak is difficult. Now, conversely, me tweaking somebody, I don't like the way this is going to sound. I can do it in an amazingly quick way. Why? Uh-huh. Because I'm so good? No, not really. It's because what I do is so different.
Exactly.
But I'm kind of cheating because I've got a lot of good, valuable information supporting what it is I'm trying to do. Mm-hmm. Versus what they're working with. And they're not. So I think they become jaded. Players, I think coaches. Someone shared with me, because I was trying to get to a coach and he happened to be Doug Collins. Well, Roger, on the other end of the thunder, said, "Well, Roger, I got to tell you the truth. Doug Collins isn't real fond of shooting coaches." Oh, really?
I wonder why that is.
Wait a second. And I'm saying this. Oh boy, I didn't know that. Well, that's the more reason I want to talk to Doug Collins. I'm not fond of shooting coaches.
Exactly.
I read whatever they wrote about how to improve your shot. I listened to their video or watched their videos trying to get better any way I could. If they wrote a book, I got my hands on it. Mm-hmm. I devoured everything I could to become a great shooter, only to find out again that, wow, why didn't somebody else discover what I discovered? And I've come to learn most of them never changed anything that they had been doing from day one.
Got you.
And they're comfortable. And comparative, well, they don't have the comparison I have. They have no frame of reference. I've got a frame of reference. This worked that well, and what I'm doing now works this much better.
Exactly.
Well, okay. Why wouldn't I promote that? Why wouldn't I want to get that out there? Uh-huh.
No, so, and that's kind of like the perfect segue, because I kind of want to ask you more specifically about like players that you might have seen, or like what you see in their game. And so like, I'm a Lakers fan, Laker Nation over here. So right. The 3 players in particular that I kind of want to ask you about, starting with like Russell Westbrook. Okay. He's shooting like 30% from 3 this season, and like 67% from the line. But earlier in his career, he used to be like a mid-80s free throw shooter. So like, have you seen anything in his form per se this season?
Hey, Najee, I'm glad you said it that way, because what happened?
I have no clue.
And that's what we get from basketball people too. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Hey, who knows? Hey, what? Okay, that's a good answer. No, what really happens? Mm-hmm. Well, we don't really know. But can we kind of eliminate? He forgot what he learned to do. Mm-hmm. He forgot. Did he forget how to dunk? Did he forget how to dribble? Did he forget how to run the court? Did he forget? Did he really forget how to shoot? Or were the mechanics that he was working with? Because you're talking to someone who's saying to you, it is inherently riddled with challenges that don't need to be there. Mm-hmm. And Russell is not the only one. I identified 57 universally present variables within a traditional shooting system.
Mm-hmm.
And he has, for all intents and purposes, a traditional, conventional set of mechanics born out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to his disadvantage, believe it or not, his athleticism can get in the way of those mechanics that appear to work for some other people better than they work for him. And that's an issue. Now, this is a guy who grew up being told probably, wow, you're fantastic as a shooter.
Uh-huh.
No, you're amazing. No, probably not. This is a guy that was probably touted, given accolade upon about what? His athleticism.
Exactly.
About his ability to go airborne, defy gravity, his unbelievable length, his size, just his quickness, his agility. Yeah, that's what I'm known for. That's my calling card. And that gets, believe it or not, that can get in the way of you becoming a good shooter. Because no matter how, look, all of those things add to you being able to get your shot, get into a shot, get a shot off. But at the moment of release, all of a sudden, all of that freneticness, that movement, that explosion of talent has to come together very quietly, seamlessly, and controllably to execute motion that lends itself to shooting a ball straight ahead. And you got a lot of body interfering with doing that.
Exactly.
So and that's a generalization, but he has a lot of disjointed movements which are inherent. He's not alone, but they're disjointed. There's a kinetic chain of movement. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but there's a kinetic chain that starts. And in basketball, it starts from literally the toes. And the chain doesn't end until it comes up to here. And I'm showing you, I'll tell your audience, I'm pointing to my fingertips. So that chain runs all the way through that body. And if there's a kink here and a kink there,
it can
and
throw everything
over
off.
here, you've got your reliability factor is going to be affected. Now, is it conceivable to your point? Is it conceivable he'd been worked with by some shooting coaches? Sure. Why wouldn't
Probably, yeah.
Right? Did they help him? Well, let's look at the stats. Apparently not. So now what happens to a player's mind and even coaches' minds, like Coach Collins? Well, the realization is, man, some of these guys just don't, they're not helping me, man. I'm not going to try it. What am I going to go to another shooting coach? And that's why I don't like that term, shooting coach. It takes hundreds of thousands of repetitions to affect change. Yeah, I know. I've affected change over, but it doesn't have to anymore. Not with this methodology that I've created, with the help of all those people that talked with me about kinesiology and science and all that. So there's two major components to the body. There's an upper body and there's a lower body. And if they're not all in unison,
it makes it tough.
Yeah. And the more athletic the player is, that unison, that has to be, it's more important that be there. Let's compare his body movement to that of an Embiid out of Philadelphia, right? Big, lumbering kind of body, 280 pounds,
something like that.
Yeah. Okay. That mass is going to be an automatic stabilizer in a lot of ways for him to become a pretty good shooter.
Yeah.
Conversely, it works against someone like a Russell Westbrook. And I love the way he plays, man. What's not to like about his game, other than what we're talking about? So, but he's got a lot of other company there.
No, exactly. And so that kind of Whereas like Russ is kind of diminished in his shooting capabilities as time has gone on. A guy like LeBron, who came into the league not really being able to shoot the ball, now kind of hovers around 34 to 35%. So like, is there anything you've seen in like the way LeBron shoots and how his shot has developed?
Yes, and I'll compare what he's done to what Russell hasn't done yet.
Mm-hmm.
LeBron has matured as a player. LeBron has become more disciplined as a player.
Mm-hmm.
And that can kind of infiltrate into a shooting, a little bit of a structured, disciplined shooting performance.
Okay.
And that's what I see most happen with LeBron. I use the word quiet. He's quieted his shooting system down over the years. And by quieting it, he's stabilized it. And the other thing that comes into play sometimes, especially at the NBA level and the collegiate level, are the shot charts that exist now with the analytics. Is he also taking shots that he's predisposed to making a higher percentage of? Well, you can bet the coaches are feeding him that kind of information, or somebody,
for sure,
right?
For sure.
Why would that be any different than the coveted corner three that everybody, my God, their practice facilities, they've got that area marked. We don't want you guys even practicing this incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
If you're 2 feet to the left of it, you're in the wrong location. Mm-hmm. So wouldn't the practice ones putting in even benefit their shooting percentage by virtue of that lack of variability, right? I talk a lot about variability. So LeBron has become more disciplined and structured in his form. He's holding his movements a little longer than he used to. Carmelo, one of the biggest, and again, contrast that with Russell. He doesn't tend to do that. Mm-hmm. He hasn't, and I'll use the maturation of his shot. That hasn't evolved. If it were to, it would probably, his numbers would go up, I'm sure. I'm absolutely convinced of that. Will that happen? Who knows?
Mm-hmm. And then just kind of like to round out the Lakers' big three, like Anthony Davis, his shooting issues. This is like the worst shooting percentages of his career. He's shooting like 16.9% from three and 70% from the line, where he used to be knocked down from the line about like 80, like mid 80s from the line. And like he's typically been an average 3-point shooter.
He is demonstrating, let me see how I can say this in a or less judgmental way.
For sure.
He is demonstrating almost I'm not that interested in my shot kind of thing when he's shooting. It's not as important to me as others are trying to convince me it is.
Okay.
I've grown up with all these other attributes that I'm capable of doing, and so if I shoot this and I miss it,
it'll be okay.
Yeah, no big deal. And that's what he conveys to me. Now he's got some physical things going on that certainly detrimental to him. He has almost on some shots, and this is why I say this. On some shots, I'll see him create so much separation between the two arms while he's shooting that it looks like somebody shooting a bow and arrow. I mean, it's wow. Wait, does he expect that one to go in? But so well, and then on a different shot, he shows me structure, more discipline. And if it didn't go in, it was a better miss.
Got you.
So something was good there. But 3 shots later, he's showing me the other shot again.
This is just kind of like inconsistency.
That and what this is a condemnation of sorts, and I mean it to be in this regard, for this reason. We have bought into repetition, and I'm saying that if you have a mindlessness that is prevalent and expected to be in that kind of training, don't set too high an expectation.
Okay.
Because we've got to introduce discipline, qualitativeness into that quantity, and replace a lot of that quantitativeness. Why did I miss? How did I miss? Where'd the ball go? Carl, you just shot that. Well, what do you think it was? And we don't do that. I don't think that's done enough.
Mm-hmm.
We got a guy rebounding. He's kicking him the ball back. He's taking another shot. Wait, he doesn't even have time to process it.
What just happened? We
got 3 guys. You know, at that level, they got 3 guys rebounding for him. Mm-hmm. They want to make sure he gets another one up, another one up, another one up. Hey, aren't you thinking about this?
100%. It's like you don't even think before you kind of shoot.
And I'm laughing because I've experienced that. I've experienced guys that were that big where they're not even looking at me. They're holding their hands out for me to give them a ball. They just shot 4 air balls. Literally, I had one guy who played. I won't tell him who he played. He played behind a guy that's in the pros now, and he didn't even look at me. And I'm holding the ball, and he never looked at me for about 3 or 4 seconds, wondering where's the ball. And I'm holding him. I almost tucked it under my shirt because he didn't hear a word I was saying.
Mm-hmm. He was so focused on trying to get the ball in the basket.
Another one.
That's tough. And so just to kind of end off the Lakers thing, a guy you had mentioned earlier was Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah.
So,
right.
And so, like, did you notice anything in, like, because he wasn't always, like, I think now he's hovering around like 39%, but
he's come a long ways. Yeah.
Earlier in his career, he was in the 20s. Yeah. And so, like, have you noticed anything in how his shot has developed?
Yeah, believe it or not, I call it maturing of the mind more than and then that follows. The mind becomes more in tune with recognizing maybe this is a reality. I'm getting older. Russell, you listening? I hope you're listening. Russell, you're getting older. Mm-hmm. Your airborneness, that loft that you possess, that verticality is going to wane. What could you substitute for that? A beautiful jumper, 42%, 40%, 45%. Can he get a jump shot off against anybody he'd like to? Probably. That's not the issue. The issue is when he gets it off, can he make it?
Exactly. Is it going to go in?
With Carmelo, and you mentioned where at one point he was 20%. When I won't even go there. I tried to meet with him at his rookie year because I had done a chart of my own of his shots, and it was below what number you just put out, that low number. And somebody went to a great deal of trouble to get me to meet and be interested because they had seen what I was doing, and said, "Boy, I gotta introduce you to Carmelo." And now I'm going to share for the benefit of the audience and those out there that have children that want to play. This is what Carmelo, who was standing right next to me, said after I was introduced to him. And the introduction was, "This guy can help you with your shot. I've seen him. He's a mate, blah, 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 blah." Carmelo folds his arms up, looks down at me and says, "Ain't nothing wrong with my shot."
Meanwhile, he was shooting 20%.
He was below that.
He was below 20, yeah.
20. I charted every shot he did. Back then I had to do it line by line on the computer. I devoted a great deal of effort and time doing it that way. But that's not the Carmelo we're watching. He's matured.
100%.
As a player, his form has gotten tighter. He's got less extraneous motion and disjointedness in his shot now. And his body is even under more control. And some of that is by virtue of his age, his aging. And it can be, and that's the other thing great about shot making. Age has less of a detrimental effect on your shooting ability as compared to the player who has to drive the ball from 25 feet out all the way into the paint to be met with some other additional defenders that are bigger usually than you. waiting and hoping you come down here and try to put up a shot.
Mm-hmm.
So that becomes a harder game as you get older. And I think Carmelo's benefited from, has LeBron James, as we've talked about. And some of these younger guys need need to hear that from some of those guys. Look, I was you at that age. And you know what? The sooner you recognize some of this adjustment that you can make, you have the choice. It's your choice to make it or to ignore it. I mean, that's some good advice to share with some of these guys who expect to be and remain in the NBA for any length of time. That's a tough schedule, as you know.
It is. It's grueling.
There's a lot of strong people in the NBA waiting 100%. For you to come down into the paint and give you a couple of chucks.
And so kind of like the age thing, and there's 3 more players in specific I want to ask you about, but to take a step back real quick, when did you, how long ago did you realize that there was a better way to shoot? How many years have you put into, developing this?
Well, I'd say, God, I began this very casually. Mm-hmm. I had no intention of doing what we're talking about. None. Even as considered a great shooter and NBA prospect because of that, mm-hmm. I had no inclination whatsoever of becoming even a shooting coach. Never considered mm-hmm. it until I started seeing articles supporting what I was watching. Wait, these guys look like they can't make foul shots. These guys are longer, stronger, better trained. They got nutritionists. They've got core specialists. They've got conditioning and strength experts working with them. They've mm-hmm. got better gear that they're working within. The yoga, they got everything has advanced light years. And I'm seeing an article from the New York Times that is in big black bold ink, highlighting 50 years of foul shooting practice, no results. Oh my God! It's not just me sensing that something's wrong. 50 years of practice and foul shooting had not improved in the NBA nor the men's Division I level basketball. What? And the article went on to, in summary, to come to the conclusion that what hasn't happened was, despite all those other changes, mm-hmm. there's been no change in the way we shoot. What I'm saying, that's what I've done. I didn't mean to, but that's what I've created, that innovation that didn't exist yet mm-hmm. up to the writing of that article. And then the USA article came out about Division I men's college basketball for points per game average, going back as far as the 1950s, tying a record that dated back to the 1950s for the fewest average points scored by an NCAA men's Division I program per game. Average points per game. Wait, in the 50s? They didn't have a shot clock? The athletes are not the athletes they are today. The pace of the game is not what it is today. There's no 3-point shot back then. How can you tie so all these articles served as motivation, to say the least, to keep going. And that's what kept I fed off of. Mm-hmm. It was hard to ignore. And so that once I did that and I started uncovering some of these things that I chose to ignore all those years, because nobody, I never questioned any of it. I began training individuals. And wait, is it only me? Can I only be the one that benefits from this because it's mine and I've developed it and I want it to work so hard that I'm delusional? Mm-hmm. I began training all ages, and I began having very, very good success. And those kids, girls, boys, began breaking records at the schools they're playing for. The comments about their shot, what happened, the transformation, all those things came about. I had a 15-year-old that went to Duke, mm-hmm. visited Duke. But one of my first clients that I ever trained, the Duke coaching staff commented about how brilliant, how beautiful that jump shot was of hers. Mm-hmm. She had about 65% of what I had to to share with her.
Exactly.
Wait, Duke thought that this was one of the most beautiful jump shots they had ever seen.
Mhm.
And she, she was obviously a high level player, but wow. So those kind of things fed me, and I wanted, now family and everything else gets in the way. So this has been about a 14, 15 year process. Of the last few years, I've really been trying to get it out there now to in a better way,
public, yeah.
A more effective way, like what we're doing right here.
For sure.
I'm attending the Las Vegas Summer League games.
Mhm.
I'm catching the ear of some NBA personnel. I invite, like you said, I want to be challenged.
Mhm.
I don't want you to accept everything I'm saying at face value. I love the show. Believe it or not, there's still a little bit of a showman in me. I was used to being in front of an audience and being watched and written about and all that. Man, it's a lot of fun for me to have me backing somebody in the paint. Me backing somebody who plays NBA ball, 6'8", in the paint, and making a move that ends in a basket. That's it. That shouldn't be. I shouldn't be able to do that.
But you do it.
Me to do that. What I'm trying to get out there is what's enabling me. And if I can do it with that, imagine what that NBA, that G League player is going to be able to do it. That college ball player is going to be able to do with it. They're paying a lot of money for somebody putting that ball through that hoop these days.
Exactly. It would elevate their game tremendously.
Oh, it makes everything easier. It makes everything easier. It really does.
And so I remember when we had talked on the phone a week ago, you had told me that like you can consistently shoot a free throw with boxing gloves.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
As part of the journey, I was less than 6 months. 6 months, because I had already met with a professor, different disciplines, physics, kinesiology, and with what he shared with me about the wrist, I wanted to go out and try. I wanted to disprove. He never even played ball. He doesn't know what he's talking about, right? Well, that's not the case. I wanted this thing. I didn't want to just accept it at face value either. And that's what happened. I began shooting with that as a litmus test. I wanted it to fail. Believe it or not, I wanted it to fail. I don't want to begin a journey like this, not knowing where that and working full time in corporate America, but it didn't fail. It did not. I was shooting better. I was a 77% foul shooter in college. Well, that's not remarkably great for a college level ball player like me. I'm scoring 50 points in a game and I'm shooting a woeful 77 from the foul line. Right? I'm a 98% foul shooter with the boxing gloves on.
That is just crazy to me.
I must practice a lot. No, I'm a purist. I don't want to practice shooting with boxing gloves on. You don't play ball with boxing gloves on. But I don't want to ignore the value of what I just uncovered here. Why am I able to shoot better than that's the value. That's the real message here. And can I bring it to others? Can others do the same thing? And the reality is, yeah, I've trained enough people at enough different levels to tell you, yes. And not only that, but the speed of my shot has been impacted, not in a marginal way, but out of shape, an elder person recovering from a motorcycle accident on his shooting arm, a serious motor, right? 5 punctured lung, 5 broken ribs, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, despite all that, I'm a faster shooter than I was when I was a collegiate star. I'm a faster shooter from start to finish. I had Kyle Anderson. I had a pro in my gym, sitting a lot taller than me, that couldn't block my jump shot on three attempts without me dribbling away from him.
That's insane.
Yeah, and my days of doing that are over. I mean, I had my glory and all that, but wow, what will somebody who's 20 years old do with it?
Exactly.
And is it as hard? By the way, the simplicity, what I've done is removed all the extraneous movements. So even though there's so much science behind what it is I'm bringing,
Mm-hmm.
the reality is that that seamlessness, that fluidity that's created by virtue of doing it on such a high, efficient, kinetically unkinked chain-like format makes it almost not impossible, but makes it a lot more difficult for any interference.
Got you. Okay.
Well, that means I'm going to be pretty consistent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that I just had to have you tell that story because that's just incredible. When you told me that, I was just
it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy, and that's science. What that I can demonstrate. I could go out 10 minutes, warm up. I would jump rope, warm up my body, give me 3 warm up shots, and if I made 96, I would be disappointed out of 100.
That's incredible.
Disappointed. And when's the last time? God, last time I put that glove on, those gloves, probably 2 years ago.
But it doesn't matter. Exactly. It's that like scientific, it's scientifically proven, like you can't debate it. And so kind of doubling back to just like 3 more players that I want to ask you about. One of them was Lonzo Ball. And so a big storyline coming in with when he came in the league was like his shooting form. It was super unorthodox. And he's been in league 5 years and he's improved every year. He started out shooting 30.5% from 3, and now he's at 42.3. So like he's an above average 3-point shooter now. So like, has there been anything in his shooting form or like the way that he shoots that you've seen?
Well, I happen to have had a conversation with Fred Vinson, who was helping him a lot with his shot, and he did a remarkable job. He's the kind of player, when somebody has that kind of a shooting system, and somebody has done what I've done, you start salivating, thinking, "My God, I'd love to get my hands on him," because of the transformation that could exist. Well, Fred Vinson, look at the transformation he had on Lonzo. And what did, in no discredit at all to Fred. He's done a great job, obviously. Look at the numbers you just shared. He did it by virtue of eliminating a lot of extraneous motion and movement. The number of planes, P-L-A-N-E-S, planes, that Lonzo was moving that ball around in before the release point were far too many.
Okay.
Well, that's a lot more moving parts, motion. What if you can, like I said, 57 identified variables. If I can reduce that by 10, I've improved your shot.
Exactly. It would be easier to shoot.
If I can improve 5 more, I've improved your shot even more. And that's what Fred did. Fred tightened his shot up. He made it a lot more efficient. Now he did it, I would argue it might have taken a lot longer than it needed to, but that's not Fred's fault. Fred only knows what he's been exposed to. All he knows is what I know that I have, but what he doesn't know is what I've discovered by virtue of the journey.
Exactly.
And that, Fred, you did a great job, and the upside can be even greater. Our numbers, I would argue vehemently, our numbers are going to be changed in the next 5 to maybe 8 years. They should. And if I have anything to do with it, they will be. And I need to do frankly, I need to do a better job of getting it, putting myself out there more and more. And I intend to do that now. Our highest shooting percentage should remain, obviously, the foul shot, right? Game's sure. Nobody can test that shot at all. You can even rest before you shoot.
Exactly.
Gather your thoughts before you shoot. The second easiest should be highest percentage shot should be the next least contested shot, Najee, in the game of basketball. Well, what shot is that?
Is it the 3?
Yeah, well, you didn't say it as confidently as I would like, but you guess what?
It is the
Most
three.
basketball people, their answer, the layup. Yeah, it's got the layup. No,
I was torn. I was torn between 3-point
not
layup.
really critically thinking, are you? The
Uh-huh.
layup. Wait a second. I'm 6 feet tall. You want me to go for 25 feet out as a shooter and drive it all the way to the paint and
Where
finish?
you have people that are 7 foot tall waiting for you.
Yeah, that's a high percentage shot for me. I don't think so.
No,
Will I alter my shot a little bit maybe when I get down there?
for
Yeah,
sure.
I think so. Will I get caught in the air, not having anybody to pass to maybe? Yeah, maybe. Wait, out there, there's one guy.
Exactly.
There's one. Where's the help defense? Well, he's pretty far away.
Exactly.
To the left or down there.
Probably not
to the right,
close enough to contest your shot.
Right. So if I could create a move, and I should be able to create enough a move to get enough separation to take what I would consider a foul shot. Except there's one additional movement. I'm
Jumping. Yeah.
Good job. Good job.
You know, catch it on.
We didn't rehearse this, did we?
We didn't. As seen by, I didn't know the answer to the 3-pointer layup. You know.
Wait a second. If that's really and that's a strong philosophy of mine. Now, what I'm leaving out is field goal, because I don't care. I hate to say this, but I'm saying it for hyperbole reasons. I don't care what your field goal percentage is. You know why I don't care? Because I've trained too many guys who are so gifted athletically that they can take it from 26 feet out and in 2 dribbles
get to the basket.
They can be at the rim.
Exactly.
And that's all they knew. And guess where they're going? All the way to the rim. So wait, there's a lot of feet in between that and there. And by the way, if you stop midway, that might be a wide open jump shot too, instead of having to confront those big guys waiting for you to come down there.
Exactly.
Now, which becomes an easier shot? That field goal, but that's decision making. That's one dribble too many. That's one more athletic move that maybe you'd like to show off, but you shouldn't have shown off. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
you could have conserved energy. Oh, and by the way, you might have averted injury. How many pairs of feet are down there when you land versus how many are out there guarding you? Well, we've already had
only 2.
One primary defense.
Exactly.
What are the odds of you falling on his feet versus the odds of falling on 6 feet? I mean, that's high. Yeah. We don't. I mean, those are things that you don't think about.
You don't. No, you don't take it into like consideration.
Well, when you're getting paid that kind of money, and an injury that can put you out. I mean, a rolled ankle, depending on the level, can be a very debilitating injury, or worse, So, so that second highest percentage shot
should be the 3.
Should be the 3.
Whereas now,
why are we so excited by a 45% shooter when he's a 90% or 85% from the 3? Well, I'll tell you why we're not excited. Because the mechanics that we've accepted, that we're so deeply mired in, won't allow us to get there. Well, I know that. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but believe me, I've lived it. I've experienced it. It was a religion to me. It won't get you there.
It's 8 o'clock.
And that's why I'm putting so much pressure on myself about trying to get this out, because this will get it there. This will make that happen. I'm convinced of that.
And so there's kind of 2 more guys I want to ask you about.
Okay, go ahead.
They're on the both end of the spectrum. Like they're on 2 different ends of the spectrum. The first being Ben Simmons, right? And so the big like kind of nail in his game is that he just doesn't shoot the ball. Yeah. And like when he does shoot it, it doesn't really go in. He's not really attempted many threes in his NBA career. So like, have you seen anything in his game that would show you as to why he's not confident in his shot?
You know, that's an interesting question, and it's interesting on so many levels that I can't obviously get into here. But one is, right now, if anybody's ever been jaded about shooting,
it's him.
I bet he's the first thing I've seen it in interviews. What's he get? Defensive.
Mm-hmm.
well, then it bothers him, doesn't it?
100%.
It doesn't. I don't need to shoot. What does bother you though? Because you can tell by his reaction, it bothers him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's resigned himself to, and you know, he's a young man. He's a multi-millionaire right now.
Yeah.
And his mind, and it's unfortunate, but when these guys get that kind of money at such an early age, and they've been handled for as long as they've been handled, the way they've been handled, and I think he's one of those victims in that regard, maybe not in the best way along the way.
Mm-hmm.
They don't mature. I hate to use that word again, but they don't mature the same way most people do that have to deal with real life, real issues, challenges,
Mm-hmm.
rather than being protected or insulated from them. And I think that's cheated him out of some of that development, mental,
Gotcha.
you know, psychologically, mentally, whatever it may be. The other is the Shaquille. I think like a Shaquille O'Neal, you kind of resign yourself to, you know what? I could never shoot foul shots. I'm never going to be able to shoot foul shots. Why even bother?
Mm-hmm.
I hate to, but that's not out of the realm in my mind of where he is. Period. Now, will the same thing happen that we've talked about here earlier about the maturation? When he, 8 years from now, will he want to be the same player that he is today? Or will he see that the time has come for him to add something, you know, change something?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a real issue. Mechanically, and I've heard this from pretty reliable sources. When he's in a gym, and we've seen video, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, okay. And this, I hate to say this, but I think I'll say it because I guess it supports a lot of what I'm trying to get out there. The mechanics that I don't care if it's Mark Price, I heard he was going to work with. I mean, we're talking about a great shooter.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, Mark Price and me in a shooting contest? Mark might beat me. Former me.
Uh-huh.
Not now, but the former me. He might beat me. 2 out of 3, I might beat him. 2 out of 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, back and forth. Who knows? But I know one thing. The mechanics will create that kind of a dynamic. He may win 4 one day he's on. One day I'm on more. Mm-hmm. And we go back and forth. Well, what's going on there? Why can't I beat him regularly? Because there's so much going on, so much complexity in that traditional shot system. That's what they're training Ben with. I mean, that's all they've got to use.
Exactly.
And
that's all they know.
Has anybody tried it before and it failed? Of course. This isn't the first. Do you think this is just like in the last year, 2 years or 3 years, Ben's been exposed to a shooting coach? I mean, seriously? Mm-hmm. Nobody's tried to work with him, 10 years previously, 5 years, 3 years, knowing this guy's 6'10", he's going to play basketball. Uh-huh. And let me see, the 3 ball's been introduced for a few years already. Mm-hmm. No need to work on that. Wait, I feel like I'm in my living room talking to you, sitting next to me here. Mm-hmm. Very conversational, right? But I'm just sharing with you, like, wait, so is he jaded too? Look how many coaches I've worked with that can't help me.
Exactly. It starts to get in your mind. Like it starts to affect your psychological impact. Exactly. It's crazy.
Do I really want to do it?
Mm-hmm. Is it worth getting the criticism?
Yeah, right. And that's a lot. I feel badly for him. There's a lot there that's being put up on him that I'm not saying he hasn't invited some of that. Mm-hmm. or opened himself up to some of that. But boy, it's just a darn shame that, and I'm not giving up. I hope I'm holding out hope that someday, sooner the better, I'd mm-hmm. be able to get to him and say, hey, Ben, I do whatever you've been exposed to. I can guarantee you one thing. You won't see me doing one thing that you've already done.
Got you.
And let's see in a couple of weeks if you don't feel better, more confident. And that's the key. Psychologically, because the head thing that we all talk about when it comes to Ben, here's what I've experienced. Parents who bring their kids, whether they're 17, 18, one was 19, or 14. You know, I want to tell you, Najee's got we think it's a head thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just doesn't believe in himself. He gets down on him. He blah 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 blah. You know, my mechanics, my set, more simpler, streamlined set of mechanics seem to automatically address a large part of that. Why? Not because I'm a psychological analyst. I'm no, not necessarily. No, it's due to the fact that throughout the methodology and the process, they start believing the reality.
Exactly. They become more confident in themselves.
They are experienced. Look at this. I can have you making shots with your eyes shut in 10 minutes.
Which is crazy.
Wait, nobody can do that. But okay, you're not going to be able to do it. When you leave here, you're not going to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to train you to do what you need to do in order to be able to leave here and do it too.
Exactly.
But then you start feeling a lot more confident. And by the way, it doesn't come and go. The movements are so much more kinesiologically, anatomically correct. Literally, they are easier to, there are things I could have you do in your studio within seconds that would have you thinking, gee, that was natural.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of that applies beautifully, effortlessly to basketball shot making. But when Najee comes to me as a conventional shooting coach, I'm going to show you what you have to do as because I'm a basketball coach. And this is all I know, and this is what I expect you to do, and hope it works. So,
exactly. They're just kind of recycling, just kind of like recycling the same info rather than like introducing something new.
Yeah.
And so kind of the last guy I want to ask you about, and I feel like you can't have a shooting conversation without talking about Steph Curry and the NBA. So
I love him. Love him. And I'll tell you what he became, think about it. And Damian now, right? Someone told me recently, not too recently, a while ago, you know, Damian, what do they call him? Logo?
Yeah, Damian Lillard.
Yeah, Damian Lillard. Big guy. Hey, big guy. Set a screen for me as soon as I cross midcourt. Okay, well, what's going into that thought process? Well, I got pretty good range. I feel a little bit confident taking a pretty long shot. And I'm probably not taking a shot I think I'm going to miss. I'm taking it thinking I'm going to make it. Not a sniper. The guy is not a 45% three-point shooter, right? But he has that level of confidence. But what's nice about what's really at work here? Well, he knows he's going to be wide open. He knows he's going to be guarding. Wait, how many guys are out there guarding Damian? One. Damian's pretty athletic. He's a pretty good ball handler. I'm going to have a hard time sticking with him. Damian has a big advantage. He knows when he's pulling up off of which dribble, when, where. I don't. I'm not practicing with him in the gym. He knows he can shoot from there. I don't until I see him do it.
Exactly.
Oh, too late. Wait, Damian's got to get back, and Steph's got to get back on D. Oh, wait. He's 35 feet from the. He's got to go 3 back steps.
Exactly. It's easy.
Now, wait. This is what I love about, besides his motion, and see, he is one of my biggest billboards, believe it or not, because he has introduced. Is he a conventional shooter? Traditional, conventional, textbook shooter? No, absolutely not. I was. I shot pretty well, damn well. Not too far removed from how accurate a shooter he is, believe it or not, and that doesn't matter. But did I have his range back then? No. Would I have it now? Oh yeah. Not as far out as he is currently at my age, but back then, yeah, I'd had his range, knowing what I know now, because of that seamlessness, that kinetic chain that doesn't have many kinks in it along the way. But Steph is managing load. Talk about load management. Wait, Steph comes across midcourt, starts sighting the target, pulls up 30 feet out, launches, 3 or 4 back steps, he's back on D. Now,
Just
there
like
was
that.
a guy in Philadelphia by the name of Allen Iverson who played professional basketball. If he could, Allen would have inbounded the ball 94 feet at the other baseline to himself and then dribble at 90 feet and then dribble it 10 more seconds after he got past, maybe 15, and then drive all the way to the hoop, pick himself up off the floor, and then run back to go play D. Now, let's look at the career span. Allen Iverson, what would you expect him to play effectively? Or Steph Curry playing the way he plays?
Steph Curry.
What part of Steph's game, what part of either game is going to diminish more prevalently, more quickly?
Like athleticism.
Yeah. Okay. You can see me. I shouldn't be able to even offer up a challenge to anybody in their 20s who's a modest to high level basketball player about blocking my jump shot outside. But I can. And that speed of shot, that seamlessness is such a huge advantage that it enables one to be able to play ball the way he's playing ball. He has such a fluidity within his shot. And this is one of the reasons why he's so hard to guard. You off of a left-hand dribble, a right-hand, it doesn't matter. He begins his shooting motion at so many different levels within the plane of travel that makes him that capable, that threatening. There aren't too many people. Well, with the conventional shot, you can't even do that. You can't do what I just described. Not as effortlessly and as seamlessly and as effectively as Steph Curry does.
Gotcha.
And he's the only one, to the degree that he demonstrates it, that is closest to the seamlessness that I've introduced or engineered into this shooting system. James Harden has another little portion of one of the elements that he benefits greatly from in this. KD, a whole different animal, right? Whole different configuration, body-wise, has another very effective part. Small percentage, but a very effective percentage. Should KD be as low a shooter, as tall and long as he is, low percentage-wise? I argue very strongly, no, that guy should be leading, close to leading the league in three-point shots. Is he really fearful of too many guys altering his shot from out there?
No.
I bet no. No, I bet very right. Of course not.
No, there's not many people that can even contest, probably.
No, he's not altering a jump shot from out there.
No.
Well, he may be adding some stuff that Steph adds, some of the entertainment value, the drifting arm, the waving. but he's practiced to do that effectively for all intents and purposes. I would argue that it even bothers him on some nights. Again, when Steph is off, and he's off, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Why is he off? Well, he's taking bad shots in that game. Really, Steve Kerr? Coach, how many bad shots? How many shots? And you're leaving him in the game? He's taking truly contested, altered three-point shot attempts. Let's look at the video. Probably not.
No.
So, wait, the defender said something to him that really upset him? That bothered him to the point where it's affecting the shooting. That's what it is. Oh, what is it? There's still some flaws. That's what it is.
Got you.
There's some things, and this is one of the not an epiphany, but one of the eye-opening experiences I had along the way of this journey. When I asked Kyle Korver about where his guide hand was, there was a big pause. He didn't know. He was going into where his shooting hand was. I wasn't going to tell him, by the way, because of where it was. It happened to be on top of the ball like Evan Turner. Oh, I'm not telling Kyle.
That's tough.
Hey, Kyle, here's the picture. I showed him the big half-page picture, and that's why there was applause. Now, what do you have to do with that hand before you release? You got to move it.
Exactly. You can't shoot it with the.
You can't shoot it with the right.
No.
How disruptive can that be to a shooter airborne? In the air, you're moving your hand up. Your hand's attached to your arm. Your arm's attached to your shoulder. Your shoulder's attached to your chest. Your chest is attached to your waist. That kinetic chain, maybe a kink, right?
100%.
Yeah. And by the way, when what precipitated that conversation was Kyle, I'm Roger Galo. You don't know who I am, but man, you're leading the league in the NBA from the foul line, leading the league. Number 92%. Do you think you shoot mechanically different when you're shooting a jumper? No. I can barely finish the question. No. Well, then what is it? This 29%, 92%, 29 from the three, 92 from the foul line. I call it the three and the free, 92. But wait, that's 63% gap,
which is crazy.
Wait, you sure you don't shoot mechanically different? Nope. Well, then what do you do this caught? Well, being guarded. Okay, you're curling off of the screen, Kyle, with all due respect. The guy is not even in your sight line. He's over here somewhere. So what is it that, and he's pausing. I let him stew a little bit because, you want that sometimes, right? He's thinking, he's really thinking, well, what do you add? What do you add out there to your shot? And he's, 3 or 4 seconds. It wasn't like I was torturing. You jump. So is your jump? Now I used a different word I won't use here. But is your jump that bad that it's affecting you that much? And I'm pulling out my card, one of my freshly made cards. And because he was asking me, are you going to be here? Are you going to? No, Kyle, I've got to go. But I enjoyed meeting you. And, whenever it bothers you enough, I'd love to talk to you more about that. And that's what piqued his interest. And I'll be the first to say, I never worked with Kyle Korver in a gym, but we had a long meeting in person and talked about some other elements. And he went on to Atlanta and experienced 2 his highest 3-point shooting seasons percentage-wise, back to back of his NBA career. So cerebral, but I made the assumption that, man, as good as he knows everything about his own shot. Well, my point is, Steph Curry, I'll guarantee you he doesn't know everything as well as he should. And he could be even better as a shooter.
Which is mind-blowing to think that he could be even better.
Yeah. So love him, love his persona. Unfortunately, the downside, can I give you a downside of this?
Of course.
The listeners. I've got 12-year-olds I'm watching in the gyms that I work with around the area that are mimicking. And I warn everybody. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff the pros do right, but they don't do everything right. You have to be very careful what part of what it is your favorite player might be demonstrating that you really want to try to incorporate into your development. Might not all be, that drifting of the arm. Yeah, I wouldn't do that too early. And when you have 10, 12-year-olds that mom and dad are now encouraging them to shoot 3-pointers that can barely heave the ball that far. Yeah,
as soon as you come across half court.
10 feet short. And they're going, nice shot, Najee. Nice. It was an air ball out of his range. That's not a nice shot. So that alarms me a little bit.
Mhm. No, for sure, for sure. I've seen that in like AAU games, kids, high schoolers. You like you said, like there's certain parts of your favorite player's game you want to incorporate, and there's certain parts that you don't. And so like weaving out which ones you do and don't is an important part of like a player's development.
That's right.
And so yeah, I just want to say thank you. This whole conversation was enlightening, fascinating, super interesting. So like where can everyone kind of find you at? Like thank you for dropping gems, but like where can everyone, get all your information from?
Well, I'm happy to say they can contact me at rogergalo.com. They can go to my website there. Email me at rogergalo123. The 123 is for the shot. The 1 to the 3-pointer at Gmail. Roger Galo is Galo, 1L. And then they can follow me at Galo Method, Galo Method. Those are the best ways to connect with me. I would ask them to visit the website and maybe listen in on a couple of these things, the podcast. I've been on some podcasts that you guys like you have asked such great questions, and it's such a nice, like this, just a conversation. I don't want to talk real technical, of course, because of, you don't need it. It's like
exactly.
You have to understand the way the current gets from the panel all the way to and all this electric negative. No,
you just know it happens.
Go flip the switch.
Exactly.
You want the light off? Push it the opposite direction. Understood? Your way.
But yeah, so thank you. So everything that he just said, like all his links and everything, I'm gonna put it in the description of the podcast, so you could just go check there. And yeah, I just want to say thank you, Roger, once again. Thank you for taking the time. And I'll talk to everyone later.